Hello and welcome to a new project. Here you can see the plan for what we are doing today. It's going to be another geometric project. In the last two videos I tried something new, the geisha and the samurai. If you haven't seen those yet, definitely check them out. They turned out really beautiful. But for now I needed to get back to something geometric. Let's move on to the veneer selection. Normally I stick with my three classics. But today I want to try something new. I want to use combinations that I don't work with very often. For this project I'm using teak, American elm, plum, smoked eucalyptus, and amaranth. Why I choose these specific woods and what effect I'm aiming for, I will explain in more detail later in the video. As you can see in the plan here, the entire project is based on isometric paper. With this grid, it's really easy to draw hexagons and 6-pointed stars, and that's exactly where we are going to start. To transfer the pattern accurately onto the veneer, I've attached the isometric paper directly onto it. I always make sure the template is aligned cleanly along the grain. That way I can cut the individual parts precisely later on. The star itself is made from plum and smoked eucalyptus. This combination creates a really interesting effect. You will see later why I choose it. Here you can see the finished piece. This little corner requires extra care, because the grain makes it extremely easy for the veneer to break. To prevent that, I press a thin layer of wood glue on the back beforehand. That adds a bit of stability to the material. Next, I am cutting the background for the star out of American elm. I've applied the isometric paper again and marked exactly which areas need to be cut. Now I'm only cutting out the inner star without removing the entire hexagon. And here's the star once it's fully cut out. After that, I insert the previous cut star fragments back into place. This part is a bit tricky because the pieces fit very tightly, but after a bit of adjusting, everything lines up perfectly. Then I fix everything with wood glue. And afterwards I cut out a full hexagon. And here's the finished hexagon. To explain why I use these specific orders of steps, you might think I could just cut all the pieces individually and assemble them afterwards. The problem is, as I mentioned, the star pieces fit incredibly tight, so if I were to adjust the outer frame separately, like you see here, each hexagon in the pattern would end up slightly different. Some a bit larger, some a bit smaller. It would ruin the symmetry of the entire pattern. With my method, I can make sure that all hexagons are almost identical. Any small inaccuracy remains inside the star and don't affect the outer shape. I hope this explanation makes sense. And here are all the finished hexagons. What do they remind you of when you look at them like this? To me, the smoked eucalyptus looks a bit like chocolate, and the plum veneer almost like nougat. Maybe I just ate too much chocolate over Christmas. In any case, I had that thought in the back of my mind while working on the rest of the pattern, so I chose teak for the frame. I think the warm fawn tone fits perfectly. I cut the individual frame pieces again using the isometric paper. At the intersections I use small squares with a different grain direction. This separates the lines and makes the pattern look a bit more independent. Without these breaks, I constantly have to think about which frame overlaps which. For the spaces between the hexagons, I'm using amaranth. Mainly because I've had this veneer for a while and hadn't found a suitable project for it yet. But here it creates a really nice contrast, and if you stick with the chocolate theme, it could also be jam. I really shouldn't write scripts when I'm hungry. Now that all the pieces are cut out, I just need to assemble them according to the template. To start, I'm building the frame that will later surround the entire pattern. The frame is also made of teak. First I cut these stripes here. They are much larger than the final frame will be. And that's on purpose. After pressing, I will trim them to the final size. Then I cut two of the stripes in a right angle and fix them together with wood glue. It's really important that this angle is a perfect 90 degrees, because the entire pattern will be aligned to it later. And now we can start assembling the final pattern. Since these steps takes quite a while, I have to do a lot of measuring and checking to make sure the pattern turns out absolutely perfect. I'm showing you the progress here in the form of photos. It makes the work a bit easier for me and also helps you follow the process more clearly. Here's the finished pattern. It really looks great, but I can tell you, this was much trickier than I expected. The first two rows fit together perfectly, but somewhere around the middle, suddenly nothing wanted to line up anymore. It took me far too long to find a mistake. One single hexagon, the one I had used to align the reference line, was less than half a millimeter too large on one side. That tiny half millimeter caused some surprisingly large gaps to appear in the pattern. Once I fixed the issue, everything suddenly fit together again. It's really amazing how much impact such small deviation can have in a project like this. but now everything fits. And if you notice that the crane in the frame looks different, that's because I replaced the frame. The teak veneer I originally wanted to use ended up being just a bit too short. Now all that's left is to attach the entire pattern to a particle board. To do that, I first secure everything with veneer tape. In theory, nothing should move anymore, since all the pieces are already fixed with foot glue, but I still do this step, just to be safe. After that, I remove all the masking tape from the back. The tape was only meant to be temporary, while I was assembling the pattern. And here you can see the finished piece, now ready to be pressed. For pressing, I use a simple particle board as a base. I spread it evenly with foot glue and then place the pattern on top. I do the same thing on the back of the particle board, but with a larger sheet of birch veneer. This helps keep the finished piece nice and flat. Then I press everything and let the glue dry overnight. Here you can see the finished piece after pressing. Any glue residue and possible newspaper marks will completely disappear later during sanding. But before that, I first remove the veneer tape again. That's very easy to do with a bit of water. Afterwards, I cut the piece to its final size, then I veneer the edges with teak veneer. Finally, everything is sanded and finished with clear coat. And here it is, the finished piece at last. Quite a few things came up for me at the beginning of the year, which is why this video only coming out now. I actually started this project around Christmas, which also explained a little chocolate comparison along the way. But to be honest, I'm not even sure anymore whether that theme still works 2 months after Christmas. Feel free to let me know what you think in the comments. But now back to the project itself. With the clear coat applied, the entire pattern really comes to life. Because the lines are broken up by design, the light reflects differently in many areas, giving the whole piece a very lively appearance. The amaranth also adds a beautiful contrast and makes the pattern even more interesting to look at. Thanks to the method I explained earlier, all the stars and hexagons are absolutely identical, which gives the entire piece a very calm and clean look. Overall, I'm really happy with the result. I will definitely be using this combination of veneers again. They simply work extremely well together. It was a lot of work, but it was absolutely worth it. I hope you like the piece just as much as I do. If you'd like to see more projects like this, feel free to subscribe to the channel. If you have any questions or ideas for future projects, leave them in the comments. And if you want to see what else can be built with veneer, patience and a bit of creativity, stick around, there's more to come.